Hey guys, welcome back to Too Brown for This. Just before we get into this episode, I'd like to start off with some gratitude to the listeners. We've been having lots of positive comments on our Instagram posts, and I also want to say you guys have been engaging like crazy. We've been posting up some stories. From these stories and posts, we've had some really good feedback. I'd like to just bring one to your attention, which reflects the reason why we're doing this. It's a comment from Muskan on our first post, so shout out to Muskan if you're hearing this. It says, just listen through the first episode and damn, you guys picked up a good topic. It's nice to know that the Indians out there aren't just trying to fit into the Western societies, but are also being mindful about carrying forward their heritage and culture. I feel kids back home should need to realise this too, rather than desperately wanting to inculcate, that's a bit of a big word there, I don't even know what that means myself, but inculcate the Western ideologies totally. You guys are doing a great job. All the best with the channel and hope it reaches out to people. And guys, this is exactly why we're here doing this podcasting. We want to represent. We want to bring hope to people. And yeah, let's get started straight into the episode. The agenda for today is introducing my best friend Harman and a little bit about his life. There are a couple of key differences between him and myself. Namely me being born in the UK, whereas Harman was born in India and came to this country when he was 12. So, Harman, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me on our podcast, bro.
Yeah, I was going off on a tangent there. I completely forgot that Harman was here and that this episode is about him. So, straight over to you, Harman. We know that you've come to this country since you were 12, so I think it would be best for us just to tell us about what life was like growing up in India, not as a British Asian at this point, just as a Desi Munda growing up in India.
I'll try my best to sum this up as best as I can, considering how young I was. You don't really remember anything when you're that young. The earliest memory I probably have is along the lines of when I'm 7 or 8. At that age, you don't really seem to think about things like moving out the country. I think being born in India, I thought that my life was going to start and finish in India. I didn't actually really know anything existed outside of India. I'd seen the movies, you've got the Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, you've got all these Yash Chopra films with all the songs in like the mountains, Scotland, this and that. So I'd seen all the movies, but never really stepped outside of India at that age. Didn't really think about anything in terms of what life would be like if I wasn't around people that looked like me, talked like me. And
you're just remixing my part.
I'm just remixing. I'm taking inspiration from your podcast episode. I grew up in a big joint family, as a lot of people in India do. I'm from New Delhi, which is the main city in India. And growing up, I had a big support network. I had all my family around me. My mom and dad took care of me. I had loads of friends in school. We were all growing up and experiencing everything at the same time. There was nothing really that I experienced that someone else hadn't or wasn't going through, so I felt very comfortable. And the reason that is because when you know the majority is going through the same things that you are, there's not much that you can do about it, in the sense of if there's, let's say, something politically going in the country, everyone is experiencing that. The point is, everyone's in the same boat. There's no differences visually to a person, there's no differences culturally to a person. Everyone is celebrating almost the same festivals. Obviously, within India, you'll have different cultures. But overall, you've got the same holidays as everyone. You're looking forward to the same things. Even when you're talking to your friends and you mention a specific topic, like, oh, last night I had dal for lunch, last night I had dal for dinner. It's not something that someone's going to say to you, what's dal? It doesn't feel uncomfortable to speak about those things. You feel very normal. It just kind of rolls off the tongue, your experiences.
Is that why we're recording this podcast now?
Yeah. I mean, I want to be with my community. I want people to know what we're going through. I want to listen to what people are going through. And I want to see how relatable we all are. At the end of the day, there's going to be someone out there that's moved countries and currently is sitting there alone, probably doesn't know about this podcast yet, but is going through these experiences. Or there might be some brand boy who's born in the UK and is going through similar experiences that you must have gone through. and again doesn't know about this podcast yet, but could use this podcast as a way of communication, as a way of finding people that they can relate to.
Do you think it will have the same effect, that they'll feel better? Because like you said in the point previously, that it made you feel more comfortable knowing that there were others just like you, who looked like you and walked like you, who had the same experiences.
Yeah, I think essentially that's what all immigrants are trying to do, isn't it, Rev? Like, we build our communities, we try and have a sense of belonging in order to feel that like we're at home. We want to feel comfortable because home is where you feel the most comfortable. And for a lot of people, for a lot of immigrants, home was back in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, could be Nigeria. It doesn't have to, it's just anyone that's moved from one place to the other. I mean, your friend that popped up to you over DMs to say they've moved from England to Sweden. They feel like England's home, but they feel the same way that we are feeling here in Sweden. They're having to learn the language. They're having to go through this experience in their own
Right.
way as a person who's not of color, who's an ethnic majority. But they are still experiencing this, aren't they? So it essentially, living in India, I felt very much at home at that time. And moving at the age of 12, I did not know what I was in for because, first of all, I was too young. Second of all, the cultural impact that I was going to have, I was not prepared for.
Take us to this point in your life. You're 12 years old and you've just realized that you are going to move to a completely different country and see completely different people. What feelings are you experiencing? Is it excitement? Is it fear? Is it a mixture of both? Take us through, as best as you can remember, how you were feeling at that time.
Do you know what, Rav? Contrary to popular belief, I was super excited. You know, like, you'd always heard of England in stories, the UK, people talking about the UK like, oh my god, it's a magical country. All these movies that I mentioned earlier that I watched, it was crazy. I was excited to see snow. I had never seen snow in my life. In India, obviously, it's way too warm where I'm from, New Delhi. You don't really see snow there, especially now. There's so much pollution there. But I was really, really excited. It felt like, you know, that sweet innocence where you don't actually know the realities of the world and what you'll have to go through. But at that time, as a child, the only thing I thought of was it's a new beginning. I'm going to meet new people. And it honestly, it felt like one of those movies. I felt like I was one of the main characters in a movie, moving from this country to the next and going to start a brand new life. We'll experience brand new things. So I think excitement pretty much sums it up. That's what I was feeling at that time. That isn't to say I wasn't feeling sad leaving India, because at that time, as I said, that's what I call home. And if you're leaving home, you still have that uneasiness of going to a new place, having to adjust there. So I was also feeling uneasy. I did cry the night I left. And I did say goodbye to a lot of family members that I didn't see for a long time until recently. So I did feel uneasy at the same time. But I think excitement triumphed over everything else that I was feeling as a child. Because as a child, as you might know, you don't really feel scared of many things because everything's new to you.
You said that story that most South Asians can relate to about how the UK is a magical country and everything's perfect and we have free healthcare. We hear people back home saying it all the time, send us money from back home, send us money. You guys are rich. Where do you think that comes from? Why do you think so many South Asians who have not particularly seen the UK or moved to the UK, why do you think they have this ideology?
To sum it up in one word, there's a lot of people that show off back home to say, we moved to this country, we worked hard. Of course, everyone works hard, but that we've worked hard. And look what we've done. We've built houses, we've got cars, we're driving Mercedes, Audis. We are earning loads of money. Not knowing that, how are they earning that money? They're grafting 60, 70 hours a week. And, going, a lot of our people are, into construction, trades, which includes a lot of hard work and grafting. And I think it's just human nature, isn't it? Like, you've moved from a place back home where you didn't have much to a place where, yes, you are working hard, but because of the currency exchange rates, because of the value of the currency, you're able to earn more in terms of back home amounts. So, and something inside of you might say, hey, I want to show that off to the people back home. Look what I've done with myself. I think it starts off by, I'm proud of myself from what I've done, to I want to just show it all off now. So and that then in turn puts a standard of living for people back home that might not necessarily be true as to what actually happens here. Because as you know, and as all our listeners from the UK will know, this life isn't easy here. Everyone has to work. We're all working as hard as possible to make ends meet, especially now in the cost of living crisis. Quality and standard of life might be a bit different, might be better in certain aspects. We've got free healthcare. We've got a lot of other benefits that we have in this country. We've got good air quality, good food quality. We've got better standards. We've got health and safety. But essentially, it comes down to the fact that it is our own people that have set that standard to people back home to say that, look, I've got so much money, I'm actually balling. Whereas you're actually grafting here, trying to earn that hard-earned money.
I think it's a classic case of the grass is always greener on the other side, right? So I just want to raise a point to that point, Harman. Do you think that show-off culture still exists in India? I mean, we can't be the only country that has show-off culture, right? As South Asians, show-off culture is kind of embedded in our values. Look at our weddings when, we said in the last podcast that you're pretty much judged by whether you have a house or not, whether you're married, you have kids, all of these things.
Yeah.
So what do you think about back home? Did you see the same show-off culture or not?
Do you know what? That is a good question, and you're right. Even recently, like I just recently went to India, and there is so much show-off culture even back home. And yeah, I guess it is embedded into us. I think that's what makes us brown. South Asians in general, like we want to show that we're all, grand weddings, and everyone wants to have a good big house. I think our people tend to forget the fact that who are we doing this for? We're doing this for us and our kids and our future generations. We're not doing it for other people. And I think this type of conversation that I've had with people in our communities, that why do we want to show it off to others when we could make it and, for our own kids, as I just said. But yeah, there is definitely show-off culture out there as well as here. But it is, at the end of the day, it is our community that brings it here as well.
You've told us now about how you've kind of had this expectation that the UK is going to be this grand country that you come into and everything's great and everything will work out just fine. So as soon as you came to this country, what was your experience of that? Was that what it was chalked up to be, or wasn't it?
Well, my first ever experience as soon as I landed was, first of all, currency difference. So me and my mom, right? We brought some money. Obviously, we brought money from back home when we moved here. You need to have some money to, So we rock up to the currency exchange, and we're thinking, we've got enough money. It'll be fine. We're starting brand new life, but we'll be fine. And what they return back to you is like 5 notes instead of like 500,000 notes or something. I'm just exaggerating. I'm not going to tell you how much exactly it was, but it's just that
there's going to be that one guy in the comments. I'll tell us exactly
how
much it was. What was the exchange rate at that time? Otherwise it's not true.
Yeah, otherwise your story doesn't make sense. I'm going to fact check you on this. So having that shock immediately to the fact that, wow, like India's currency doesn't hold much power compared to the UK currency. So that was the first immediate shock that I had. Then the next thing that I really felt was the vibe was really different. I was hoping, and what I had in my head was, as soon as I land in the UK, everything's cheerful, like the London hustle bustle life, in the town, everyone's wearing like amazing like clothes, and there's like people singing on the streets, there's like festivals going on, the London Eye. Obviously you don't land in London right next to the London Eye when you land from a plane, right? That's, as a kid, what I had in my head. I'm thinking, I'm gonna land right in the middle of London. So we landed. The vibe was quite cold, actually. It's almost like I went from a life of viewing a movie in color almost to like a grayscale, like everything's kind of cold and damp and dark, which, it's probably to blame the UK weather. Let's be honest, there's no sun here, so it's probably because of that. So that was the initial reaction of how I viewed UK. So it went from being a jolly country to like a bit of a darker kind of grayscale country. Then came the stares. You can tell when someone's staring at you. I think stares is like a part of our life in the UK. You can tell that people know that you're different to them. Be that in race, your hairstyle, where you're from, even within the UK where you're from, what clothes you're wearing, people can tell. And do you know what? People can tell, and you can feel that on you. So we left the airport. We tried to get a taxi. Whatever we tried to do, the next thing what we did, you could feel people staring even from the airport. And as a child, I didn't really think much of it. It just felt uneasy. So the excitement now was being changed into more uneasiness kicking in, which I think that's when reality was setting in. That wow, we've now taken that step. We've actually moved on from where we were. So now we were into more of like a new beginnings part of our life. So now home's been left back. We have to make this place our home. But until you've settled in, you feel uneasy. You're trying to find everything out. The next thing that I realized, even as a child, I realized this was you're in a new place. Your community is here, but there's no one that's going to help you. That's one of the things I realized. The reason I realized this was because you see people like you around you, and you would hope and assume that maybe they'll come to your aid, which isn't actually the case. And I would even go as far to say here, which I'm not sure if we've spoke about this before, is that it is your own people that might sometimes pull you down, which kind of relates back to how I felt before while I was in India, that I felt comfortable. I felt like I had a group of support. Even if it was friends, family, or strangers, you felt like I belong here. Whereas when I landed in the UK, we had to go from Southall to Birmingham. And there was this taxi driver that we asked for help. We wanted to know what's the best way to get to Birmingham with our suitcases, etc. At that time, we didn't really know about the coach that we could take, the tram, which would have worked out very cheap compared to a taxi ride to Birmingham. Now, this guy, Asian guy, I think he was born in the UK, decided that the best thing to do is to help a single mother and her child in the best way possible, is to charge them £150 for a taxi ride to Birmingham.
Bearing in mind, guys, this was like 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
So not even 150 quid in today's prices. 150 quid at like when, what, 2010?
Back then, yeah. So this man thought, I'll be very helpful to you. This is the best help I can give you. Not suggest us that, oh, I can help you and show you the coach. This is how you can book the tickets, etc. Obviously, back then, we're brand new. We don't know what to do. But yeah, his generosity cost us £150, Rev. That's how helpful our people were in this country when we first landed. That was my first initial experience from within our own community.
Was that an experience that you felt was kind of an attack to you, or maybe it was because the taxi driver also felt too brown for this at the time, and that was the only way he could get any money?
I'll be honest, Rev. The taxi driver and his family owned a bed and breakfast in Southall. In London at that time. I don't think they were really short on money. I think it was just our people taking advantage of our people, just because we've landed freshly off the plane. So, and you can tell how passionate I am about this, because I remember it to this day, because betrayals like that, and I will say it's a betrayals within your own community, things like that go very far in a person's memory.
Harman, the first thing that I've noticed, that betrayal is a really strong word to use. So is this just a one-off event, or do you have any other examples of this that you'd like to share? Because betrayal is a very strong word, bro.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's not even the one and only example. I could give you way more. I think we can touch upon some brief examples. I don't want to go into too much details. However, I'm pretty sure most of our listeners in the UK will relate to this. You know, our own people, you can't trust our own people half the time here. And that is directly opposite to how I felt back in India as a child. Even as a child, I felt comfortable. Whereas in the UK, hearing everyone's stories, hearing people that I know, what they've been through. For example, I know a few people that were employed by our own people, our own communities employ our own people, right? Because you feel like you trust these people. A brown guy will employ a brown guy to be a chef in their restaurant, to be a manager at their takeaway, to run their shops. And what's the first thing they do? Bro, I can only pay you cash in hand. I'm going to pay you £5 an hour. You know, you're not going to get any holidays off. You're not going to get any benefits. And I actually don't care if you have any illnesses or you don't come in. I'm going to cut that pay off of you. Now, what we should do in our community, right? You should promote your own community. You should want your community to do good. And I think that's in every community. It's not just brown guys, it's not just too brown for this. It's everyone. Now, what did I see when I moved here? Immediately, people are out here to get other people. They don't want anyone that's new to the country from back home to succeed, because I don't understand why they feel this jealousy towards people that have come just recently migrated over. It be our own people, bro. Honestly speaking, it's our own people. You'll more than likely hear a brown person say, "Oh, these people back home, freshies coming into our country, taking our jobs," then you'll actually hear a white person say that. And I'll be honest, and you've probably heard this too. It's actually our own people that are saying these things. Oh, these guys come here, they don't even know how to act. They're putting our name down in the ground. Bro, you're paying these guys £5 an hour to live. They're living in horrible conditions as well. They try and go get accommodation. They can't get proper flats. People that give them flats, landlords, they know that these guys are immigrants, so they don't really want to care and treat them nice. Some people even, and I don't want to mention anything in detail to protect people, right? But some people actually might not have the correct papers to live here, or whatever the case is. They can't actually get flats. They have to get flats either by sharing or on someone else's names, or whatever the reason. And do you know what our own people do? They give out their flats, they make the money, but they make them live in horrible conditions. I know people that have lived in dirt, in grime in these flats. There's mold growing, there's cockroaches. They're having to live in horrible conditions. Why? Because our own people don't want to support our own community. So that's basically the first thing I noticed.
Do you think that influences show-off culture? Because after, even if anyone going through these horrible conditions, when they finally make it to the other side, they want to show their families, especially everyone back home, look, I made it. They want to post those pictures on Instagram, that I've done it, I've made it, I've got out of these conditions. Do you think that is what's influencing the show-off culture?
I believe so, to a certain extent. I would say it's a story of triumph. Right, you've come to this country. If you've had to face conditions like this, if you've had to go through horrible landlords, horrible neighbors, horrible people in our own community, when you get out on top of it and you've finally made it, right, you have a sense of pride. You want to show it off that I've actually done it. You've probably told your family oh, it's not the best here, I'm struggling. Then you finally made it, so your family back home as well is proud. They want to show it off. They want to show look what my son did. He got to the UK. He's actually made this business. He's running this shop. So I think, show-off culture might actually be influenced by a lot of that as well. I think it's people coming out of hard conditions to actually say, look, we've made it.
On the back of that point, would you then say that show-off culture is a good thing or a bad thing? Because it can be seen as both from points you've raised.
Yeah. It's a good point to consider. I think, in my opinion, I don't agree with show-off culture. I think you should be happy with what you have. You should strive for excellence and to be better. But I don't really think you need to let the whole world necessarily know what you've done, right? I think success speaks for itself. When you're doing well, you don't have to shout it off the rooftops that I'm doing well and I've done this. I think it speaks for itself. When you're in a better place, you're with better people, and you're thankful. I think that's something that you should be grateful for. And I think practice humility and gratitude. So in my opinion, show-off culture, I don't think you should force it. So I don't think you should tell people how much your things cost and what you're doing on the weekends, going off to the Shard, or going off to trips to India every other weekend to do whatever because you've got the money. However, you can, I would say, instead of doing things like that, even if you do want to show off, maybe put back into your community. If you've now made it, why don't you now try and support your community, employ the people, pay them good wages? If you've got houses, actually make sure that everything's fully maintained. You don't have adverse conditions that other people are living in. So I think it actually shows that if you're a good person, you can then use what you've gained to support other people, instead of actually saying, I've made it, I'm showing off with all this stuff, whereas I'm employing X, Y, and Z for £2 an hour because I can do that. That's how I'm making my money. I think that's something that people should stray away from. I think if you're showing off that way by, cheating people
at the expense of others.
At the expense of others, that's the phrase I was looking for. Thank you. So if you're doing it at the expense of others, I think it's a bad thing. But I think if you're doing it unknowingly you're showing off because you're just, when you've made it, it will be seen. I think that's normal. I think that just happens.
So I understand and agree with everything you're saying, but for you to feel so strongly, these points must have all come from somewhere. So I'd like to just circle back to young Harman growing up. You've just come to this country, you're now in school. You said that you couldn't even find support with your own people, and there's all these strangers here. So, what support systems did you have? How did you deal with growing up and being in school, especially not even speaking the native language?
That is true. I did go a bit ahead of myself there with my feelings there. I think I feel very strongly with that subject, right? So, going back to your point of early harm, and I will also mention why I feel that way as well, because my experience in a more juvenile sense was, let's take school for example, as you asked for. On my first day of school, my own person from my own community, a brown guy, called me freshie. That's the first experience I've got from back in school that I remember to this day. Like I walk into school, I meet this guy, he's speaking to me. In retrospect, I speak to that guy. I don't speak to him as often now, but I did start speaking to the guy, and he found out the fact that I took offense to that, and he explained it to me that it actually was just a joke. And I understand that a lot of people will say things like that are a joke, but to people that are from those circumstances, it might not feel that it's just a joke. It does hit a bit deeper than just a joke, even as a child, because again, I remember it to this day. Those memories get stuck, the ones that hurt you. So being called a freshie was my first experience that I had in school. I did actually, I did actually speak English. It wasn't that I didn't speak English. I think it was a difference of the native accent. Not to say I sounded like Apu or like Raj from Big Bang Theory, but I did sound different. I still probably sound different to a lot of people that hear me. Sometimes I get American accent mixed up with mine. Only to the fact that I used to watch a lot of movies, and a lot of movies are American, so that kind of mixed in with my Indian accent, with my British accent that I learned over time. So going through school, I built that support network. I think a lot of people didn't actually realize that I was from India because I spoke English quite well. It's not that I didn't know any words in English, and I didn't really know the idea of what it's like in Western countries, because I watched a lot of movies. And even in India, I used to go to a school that predominantly tried to make people speak English, because everyone in the world knows that English is one of those languages. If you know English, you can survive anywhere. Going through school, I think finding friends towards the beginning was quite difficult because I didn't really know anyone. When I joined in year 8, and I think a lot of people had already made their friends in year 7. So somewhere deep down, I used to always feel too brown for this. It was a feeling where I thought I'm somewhere that I don't belong yet. And as I said, the country is exciting. I was very hopeful for the UK. So I still had somewhere deep down that I'll find my place here. I'll make friends. I'll belong here one day. And that actually did come true. I met some of my best friends there. Some people that I don't necessarily speak to all the time, but some of my very best friends all my friends are from the UK still. I don't speak to many friends from back in India. I have them on social media, but it's not an everyday conversation. I think now my life is now pretty much ingrained into the UK. So if we go back and circle back to your question about what my life was like and how I built that support network. Honestly, I think at that age, because we're so young, it's quite easy. It wasn't very easy for my mother. Let me add that. It was easier for me because, again, we are all young at that age. There's not many differences that will come up because there's not many differences that you can think of as a teenager.
Everyone's naive too.
Everyone's naive.
They just mix in with everyone.
Yeah, it's not really like, you're not really focused on topics like race, color, gender, prejudice, and arguably I've had a very smooth life thanks to my mom. I think my mom's gone through a lot worse than I have in that area, and because of her I've actually had a smooth life. So luckily I met amazing people. I met people like you, my best friend. So I was lucky enough to be in a place that I had good people around me. Moving from India to the UK, one of the things that I was extremely scared of was what would people think of me. as a person who's moved from India, because I didn't really know that we had such a massive community of Indians here, that people knew what curries were, what dal was, what aloo de parathe is, and everything. At that time, I thought, you know what, people are gonna think I'm a weirdo. So this is an interesting bit. I'm not sure if you know this either, but on my first day of school, I did not have lunch that my mom packed me.
You chucked it away.
No, because I was hungry. I went hungry the whole day because I was so embarrassed about having to eat that food. Not to say I'm embarrassed of my culture, but as a young boy who's moved from India and doesn't know any better, I felt like people would look at me weirdly.
You didn't want those stares, right? That you were talking about earlier.
Exactly, the stares. It's one of those things where you're already feeling uncomfortable and you don't want to be visible because you want to feel like you belong there. You mold into your surroundings. So what I decided to do was wait until the end of the day. Rather, I was starving. I waited till the end of the day. On the way back from school, I was walking home, and then I decided to get my lunch out and eat that because I was too embarrassed. And I have no shame in admitting it because that's how I felt at that time. I was too embarrassed to eat my desi food in front of all these white people, black guys around me. Even our own community, I felt like that.
Do you know what's funny? There's a big turnaround because nowadays people look at you carrying Indian food to the oven and say, "Oh, that smells nice. I'd love to have some of that." Do you know what I mean?
And
that's what I get at least whenever I go to work and I've got, my mom's cooking.
Yeah, and honestly, do you know what? I think that was also the fact that I was in my own head at that time, at that young age, because I had all these weird thoughts. I didn't really know any better. Now, as I'm older, I actually, when I do take my food into work or someone else brings food into work who's ethnic, people love it. People love the smell. People love the taste of it. And my own manager, she loves Indian food. She cooks Indian food every single day. She makes better Indian food than me.
Do you know what's funny? I think that sometimes us South Asians, we're trendsetters sometimes because our moms were the first ones to buy us baggy blazers, when you're in year 7 and they buy you one that's like 10 sizes too big so it finally fits when you're in year 11 so they don't have to buy you a different one. And what were your benta? Like, Uchia benta, innit?
Yeah.
Jack-ups, complete Jack-ups.
Yeah.
You can see all your socks. And we used to get bullied and picked on for that. But that's become the fashion trend now.
Yeah.
We're thinking, I've finished school. I got bullied so much away and, Jack-ups and stuff. And now it's become a fashion trend.
I mean,
so
you are right. I mean, I'm not sure why I was so embarrassed about my own culture and food back then. Maybe because I felt like I was going to get bullied. But now if you look back, or even if you look around now, what's the main thing that British culture has ingrained in it? That on a Friday, where do you go? You go to have a curry in a pub, right? You go eat South Asian food in a pub as a British person, and it's one of the biggest trends in the UK.
I think it's like the national food now, isn't it?
It
Curry. It used to be fish and chips, but it's a curry now.
I wouldn't even say. I mean, yeah, probably. I don't know much about that.
Yeah, don't quote us.
Don't
on that.
quote
Another
us.
guy in the comments.
But
it was a curry in 2022, but now it's gone back to fish and chips.
Yeah. But from what I see, anyways, like that's the trend. Like everyone loves a good curry, right? And it's not all been bad. That's just the main experiences that I was speaking about. Over time, I made loads of friends, as I mentioned earlier. I also made loads of South Asian friends, and I also made South Asian friends that embraced the culture. There was a lot of positives that came from it as well. One of our mutual friends, Ritika, she was one of the first people that actually I met her, and she was proud to be Indian in the sense that she used to mention eating curry. She used to mention going to places of worship. Obviously, she used to go to a temple, and she used to listen to Indian movie songs, so Bollywood songs. And I secretly used to listen to Bollywood songs. I just never had it on my main playlist, right? So she kind of helped me bring that out because then I had someone to speak to in that regards. Obviously, you were there as well, but you were on the other side of school, in the other side of the year, so I couldn't speak to you as much about it all the time. But because she was on our side of the year, she actually helped me bring that part back out. So very thankful to all my friends that helped me go through that. And actually, when I did bring that part of my life out, the friends that I had that were non-ethnic supported it. They actually didn't make me feel ashamed that I was Indian. They actually embraced it. A lot of people wanted me to bring them home to my mom so that they could eat her food because they tasted it at school and they were like, wow, like this food is amazing, because everyone wants to have a curry.
So what you're saying is that South Asian culture is something that we should never shy away from. We should be proud of it because a lot of people don't think as negatively of it as we assume to be. So you see, there's probably another kid who's 12 years old who's probably just come to this country. You know, he's reliving Harman's story. What advice would you give to those kids? You said that even if there's no ethnic sort of person or people in the school that they can still connect with, you said that the ethnic majorities still made an effort to make you feel connected. So what advice would you have for anyone going through a similar situation to yourself?
The advice that I would give anyone, especially a child that's moving to the UK and for the first time, don't let go of your culture. Because if you hold on to it as a part of your life, embrace being British as well at the same time, because you've just moved to this country. This country has a lot to give you and a lot of experiences, and you learn a lot of things. Don't lose the sight of who you are. Mix it in with the person who you will be, because at the end of it all, you'll become this interesting amalgamation of a person that's got the best of both worlds, like Hannah Montana would say.
You and your references, man.
So you actually you'll feel proud that you can speak your own language, you can have your food, you can handle the spice, but also you know all the references in the UK, you know all the memes, you know everything that there is to know about being British. So when you mix it together, you become this very interesting person that anyone would love to have in their groups, especially once you have a good support group of friends and family around you. Because just know that the people that do care about you will embrace it and actually want you to express your culture instead of suppressing it. And to say, if you're listening to this podcast, right, and the reason we came up with this name is not to say we are too brown to be British. I know we've had someone comment on the podcast to say that we should also talk about how we embrace British culture. It's not to say that we're only brown. It's the fact that we feel too brown to be British, but we're too British to be brown. That's the whole point of the podcast, right? So embrace both sides. Anywhere you move to has a lot to give you and a lot for you to learn. All the experiences I've mentioned in the start of the podcast, those are my personal experiences, but I've learned from those experiences, right? It's not to say that I haven't had positive experiences. I've also had amazing experiences as well.
So for me, having known you for as long as I don't even know how long it's been. It's been too long. I know that this isn't the be all and end all of your story, and there's lots more that you have to share in future episodes. Stay tuned. But one point I'd like to raise your attention to is tell us a bit more about those positive experiences.
Rav, there's actually so many experiences that I've also had that are positive. It's not all been negative for me. The only reason I mention the negatives is because I want people to know what we've been through. I want all our listeners to actually feel related to us, because I could go off on about all my positives now that I've got, that, you know, I've got a great job now. I've got great people around me. I've got great friends. I've got great health. I go to the gym. We've got our pages that we've started. People are supporting us. However, there needs to be context behind what we've come from to have the context of what we're doing now and why we're doing it. For example, this podcast. Why did we start this podcast? So let me take you back to some of my positive experiences, right? One of the major ones was, I'll start from early on, is school, right? Bro, I was head boy, right? Deputy head boy. Let me just correct myself before all my people from school are like, Harman, you were deputy head boy. But yeah, I was deputy head boy, bro. Coming from India into a school in the UK and becoming deputy head boy. Being invited to Cambridge for lessons there. I wanted to go to Oxford and Cambridge for physics, so like that was like a big achievement for me, you know. Getting loads of awards. Every single award ceremony that I had for school, I was awarded for, like, you know, best at physics or one or the other, and that built a lot of my confidence. You know, it's like coming into a foreign country and still being able to let me bring this back to show off culture. Still being able to show off my skills and my potential, and not being held back by people that wanted to hold me back. And then moving on to, some more personal achievements. I was learning multiple languages, so I didn't just hold myself back to English, and obviously I speak Hindi and Punjabi, but we had Spanish lessons in school, right? And actually, I kept that going for a while. I forgot a lot of it now. Please don't ask me. Lo siento. Don't ask me. I'm very sorry, but I forgot a lot of it now. But I actually gave myself the challenge of learning a fourth language out of all the three that I had. So that's then me giving myself more credibility. That look, it's not the fact that I'm a foreigner and I only speak that language. I can actually come into a different country, learn your culture, your language, and also push myself even further, even more than what people believe me to be. I'm not just a guy that's got up from India and all I can do is run corner shops or put the chips in the bag, bro. Like I can actually do everything and more that people believe. And do you know what I love doing? I love beating stereotypes every single day, every single point in my life. I've beat every single stereotype that's been against us South Asians. People just think that all we can do is IT support and we're unhealthy because we eat oily food all the time. No, I was part of the basketball team in school. I was part of the badminton team in school. I've been going to the gym since I was 16, and health is one of my biggest things with you and me. We both have been going to the gym. I was good at school, but that was because of my own choice. It wasn't the fact that people have put those standards on me as a South Asian. I wanted to perform good in school. Why? Because I want to go into work field and show them that South Asians, not only are we smart, we're fit, we're active, and we can do everything that everyone else can do, right? Because not the fact that we're just too brown for everything. We face these challenges. We have to work harder than everyone else, but we still make it out here. We've still got all these businesses that we're running. We've still got all these jobs that we're achieving. We're CEOs, bro. Our community, we are CEOs. We're employees as well, not just CEOs, but we excel in every place and opportunity that we have. And we have to work harder for those opportunities, which is why I think we appreciate them more, because it's not easy to come across these opportunities. And this is not just to say that we're better than everyone, but we do have to remind ourselves of what we've achieved in the community and as individuals, is because this is where the show-off culture might come into play, is because we're looked down upon. So we want to tell people of our achievements in order to get those same opportunities. We have to actually put ourselves up and show ourselves off so much to be known in the world, right? Because otherwise we'll just be another stereotype in the book. So I think that's why some people do relate to that show-off culture and they do promote it, because they want to be seen as that they've achieved something, they've had to work so hard for it.
We've heard a lot about your struggle now, and I know that there are hundreds, thousands, maybe even millions of people at this point who would relate. So in terms of the man that your experiences have built you up to be, is there anything, if you could go back in time to the day you came to this country, is there anything that you would do differently?
I think we spoke about this in your episode as well, Rav. I think things make more sense in retrospect. So if I now say that I would do these things differently, maybe I wouldn't be the person I am right now. The only thing, let's imagine that it's a 12-year-old Harman again, and he has to make these decisions, and he's got a book of what I've chosen as an adult Harman. The only thing I would advise to change is just don't feel scared to be yourself and to embrace your culture. I know things will feel hard, and I know there's going to be a lot going against you than with you, especially in a different country. You hear it in the news, you hear it from people around you, you hear it in the media, social media. We are looked down upon in a lot of ways. There's a lot of stigma around being ethnic, even to this day. It's an ongoing conversation that almost everyone is having somewhere or the other, that we're either treated differently, we've got more challenges, maybe there's racism or prejudice. However, from all of that, you just have to believe that all of these things don't change who you are and where you've come from, but also it doesn't change the fact that you've come to a place of opportunities, right? And you'll make something of yourself. So the only thing I would change is the mentality of the very early age young Harman that came to this country, of the fact that yes, there'll be challenges. I still face challenges to this day, but not everyone will be against you. There are people there to support you. There are people in this world that embrace your culture, embrace who you are. They would love to know where you've come from and your story. For example, I'm sure even the few listeners that we have today on our podcast, they would love to know our stories, which is why we're doing this.
And which is why they're listening.
So just change your view on your own culture a tiny bit, but in practicality, all my decisions I would keep the same, because I wouldn't be where I am right now without having experienced those challenges, even if it was something that led me to a bad part of my life or a good part of my life. I would keep everything the exact same, because I wouldn't be here right now making this podcast with my best friend if I didn't face those challenges.
You've built yourself up into quite the capable man today, but this is not the be-all and end-all. You're only 24, so if you could tell the audience about any future plans that you have, where does this even go? What does the end game look like for you?
I wanted to establish myself in the country to begin with, right? I wanted my own footing in the UK, along with my mom, obviously. So I think I've made my little corner of my world in the UK now. I'm looking forward to a lot of plans that I have. For those of you that don't know, I currently am running a fashion TikTok Instagram page on OMG Harman. I'm trying to better my style and get into the world of fashion. It's a passion of mine. I love clothes. I love the process behind making clothes and all the different styles someone can have, from ethnic wear up to modern Western culture, or even ethnic wear of different countries. I love all things fashion, accessories, or big silhouettes, or different colors, etc. Anything that you can think of, really. While also focusing on self-improvement, same as yourself. I think we both take parts of each other and incorporate into our lives, because we're obviously best friends to begin with, but I think because you and I have a similar mindset, and I think it happens with even people outside. You know, what do you do when you watch YouTube videos of self-help videos? It's because you want to relate to these guys. You want to know what they're doing, because you want to incorporate what they're doing into your lives, right? So I go to the gym. I wake up in the morning. I try and practice gratitude. I'm very happy and thankful for the things I've achieved so far, but I have plans. I have big plans. I have some plans that I have with you for the future. I have plans for my fashion channel, and I also have plans for the future for different business avenues. And yeah, I think life's a journey, and it's a constant improvement. So that's where we're looking to be, just better than what we were yesterday.
And that's the main thing, the main point that you said, that people watch self-help videos as they relate to those people who are currently going through those struggles. And that's the reason why I started this podcast with you. A lot of people told me that on my training page I wouldn't get any followers or anything like that, or any support, if I was doing it as I was going along the journey. A lot of people said to me, wait until you get big, wait until you become who you want to be, then start posting the content. And I thought I'd be creating the only problem that I wanted to solve. I wanted to see someone who was going through exactly the same thing at the same time. I could never connect or relate with someone who's a millionaire already, or who already has all those things. I can relate to someone who grew up in a city like Birmingham, went to a school like we did, had the experiences that we did. So the main point of why we're here is that we're providing stories of our experiences, so that the millions of people out there who are currently going through this now, they get the representation, they relate to it. And we're not even here to push things on you guys, like, oh, this is what you should do. top 10 things you should have in your morning routine and top 10 things you're supposed to do as a South Asian to become successful. Buy my course, it's in here.
Yeah.
No, we're here to push the representation, relation, and connection between all of our people. We see the potential that we can have as a community. I know it, Harman knows it, and we want to push forth a better, more tight, close-knit South Asian culture that every single person can benefit from. And we felt that starting this podcast and getting our experiences out there for the attention of people who relate was the best way to be able to start that. So, is there anything else you'd like to add, Harman?
And it's not to say that our experiences are the be-all and end-all. It's just, as it says on the tin, our experiences. Which is why we always urge our listeners to, use this platform and our other platforms such as YouTube, Spotify, Twitter. Use the hashtag, guys. Use the hashtag 2BFT. Let us know what you guys think of, not only about the podcast, but what you've experienced, what you've gone through. We want to know. We want to share these stories with everyone. We want to speak about these things. I think it's been too long. It's been too long that no one speaks about these types of things. I think everyone has been ignorant for far too long about the struggles. I think it's almost taboo to talk about, the experience of someone that's moved here, someone that might not be fully legal here to live here. They're going through living off in these flats and working £5 an hour jobs. We want to speak about racism, prejudice. We want to speak about our own community hating against us for certain things, maybe not supporting us entirely, and everything from there to even the positives, the people that actually build communities to help each other. You've got other YouTube channels, possibly you've got other avenues that you can share your struggles with. You can talk to us. You've got your own personal support networks. You've got the UK itself provides you with support networks. You can go to self-help groups. You can go to the NHS for a lot of these things and support. So it's not to say that, as we said, it's all been negative. The culture in the UK also provides you with a lot of good things. But yeah, it's just to open up the conversation and get everything flowing. It's something that everyone should know and talk about, and also give you guys an avenue to get through to us.
Like, comment, share. Take care, guys.
2BFT.